So, Volker, you are the composer of the new Showtime limited series Patrick Melrose. Tell us a little bit about what attracted you to the project and made you want to be a part of it.
Well, first of all, it's it's a very interesting stories. The books, from what I heard, were already like quite a big success. These 5 books that the story is based on, and when I was reading the script, and I knew that Benedict Cumberbatch is playing in it, and other very interesting actors, and also the director. I liked his work beforehand, so I had the feeling, all the ingredients are there. And what I really liked about it as well is that, the 5 episodes are so different in their style and in the parts of what they're telling about this stuff. Like that, it's maybe a challenge to work on the music because it's every episode has a different approach in a way.
Well, explain that a little bit more. In what ways each episode was different from the other?
Well, they are actually having the first episode, for example, is nearly a complete drug trip. So it's very like, it's full of like speed and tempo and of voices that Patrick is talking. He has had so a lot of double like language that is in his head and his normal speaking are coming together. There's a lot of noise from the city that maybe is recorded out of the perspective of somebody who's on drugs. So there is a lot of weird sound. In the second episode, that plays mostly in France, in a bourgeois house, in the countryside. So that is much more less tempo, and it's more talking about the childhood, and it has a lot of flashbacks. The episode 3 is, going in a complete other direction. That is playing in mostly in a kind of aristocrat family in England. So you have suddenly a complete different surrounding there, and that continues with the other episodes. I don't want to tell you too much about because there are 2 episodes left.
Right, we haven't seen it. Well, thank you.
Keep fighting, but in general, it's it's very interesting that it's not in a way playing always in the same location, and also it changes the time in the story. So I really thought it was a nice way of maybe even connecting dots with different instrumentations and find a way of expressing that it's of course from the same story, but at the same time using a lot of diversity.
Well, what were some of the ways that you were able to link these episodes musically while still making them distinct? Could you give like an example of something that you used in order to have a common thread?
Yeah, I mean, there's for example, Patrick Melrose childhood where, I mean, he was abused by his father. So a lot of, there's one story, one little episode or one little scene in nearly every episode where it's, you find a connection to that part of his life, which is definitely one of the most affecting scene that is affecting all his other life in a way. So I try to use in that scene, for example, always the same kind of dark and emotional music in a way. And there's also the flashbacks mostly in every episode to his drug addiction, which is sometimes because over the period of the 5 episodes he's trying to to get better, and I think that's also a very interesting part of a series, because mostly it's going the other way around. It's getting worse and worse, but in this case he's trying to get sober, and I had the feeling to always create musically also kind of memory of that part of his life, so that whenever you have a trip, that it consists of the same music.
Mm-hmm. In terms of Patrick's character, can you talk a bit about, I guess, expressing his thoughts and feelings and things like that? I mean, what kind of music did you come up with specifically for him?
Well, I was looking into instrumentations for him, and I was thinking what kind of instrument would be good that expresses a little bit the, you know, the craziness of him in a way, but at the same time there's also some, you know, the search, and you know, you always think that he might get better. It's not like and that makes it in a way very interesting, that you always think, yeah, okay, maybe in the next episode it's you know, there's a better development in a way. And so I try to find something that has in a way tempo and speed, and to find an instrument that is characteristic, so that whenever it appears, it's clear, okay, that is his theme. So I felt like I was actually using a harpsichord at some point, because I had the feeling it has a little bit of a kind of it's not a punk rock, rococo punk rock instrument, but there is something in it that has also some glamour or glam rock element in it. So I felt like this instrument is very nice if I use it more in a kind of reggae and dub way, you know. So in a way I was choosing that, and I was choosing a lot of like more drums that are hip hop orientated, or that have some tempo in the, you know, in the hi-hat and then the higher elements, and the bass is pretty like solid and low, and the bass drums are more tempo. So I think that was the kind of arrangement for him, and yeah, I think it worked out very well.
And because it's, you know, 5 episodes, 5 hours, you get a lot of time to spend with this guy and to chart his arc, about twice the amount of time that you would have in a film. Can you talk a bit about that, about having that extra time to sit with a character and to chart his arc?
Well, you know, I mean, it's of course, the longer you work on an episode, the more things are falling in the right place, and then you know exactly what you would like to use in a, you know, in a scene. It was not always like, maybe this was not the series where you felt like you can just take music from that scene and just, you know, move it to another episode and just leave it there. It was a lot of times also trying to find a kind of transition into another cue. And, you know, I think that was sometimes not so easy, because a lot of times the first episode is so intense, and a lot of the cues are very like loud and you know, more powerful, because they had also to fight against a lot of other stuff. So when it came to the episodes later, we had to, or I had to find an approach that in a way also is a little bit more calm, and that creates you know, a development towards more cleaner. So in a way the music cleans up as well as he does. So, you know, it gets more clear in the cues. So but it was wonderful, because it's the first time that I've done a 5-episode series, and it's wonderful to see how musically you know, you get more and more relaxed, because you, in a way, you connect the dots in maybe in the first 2 or 3, and I was very happy to see that this works.
And one of the unique things about this particular 5-episode series is that it's all directed by the same man, Edward Berger. Can you talk a bit about what that collaboration was like?
Well, the collaboration was, of course, there was a lot of unknown elements in there. So, you know, and he was, maybe what was interesting was that there was not so many temp music in the beginning. It was rather that I sent him mostly all my music that I've done so far for films, and he was tamping a lot with that. So it was easy for me to find a kind of temperature for the scenes. And what was very nice is that Edward is a guy that, you know, he gives very precise comments, and that's very, very helpful. So he was reacting very quickly, and, you know, for example, when you send whatever on one day 5 or 6 cues out, and you get on the same day like notes that are very precise and specific, you know, you always know in a way where you are at. And I think with a series of 5 episodes where you have nearly 40 minutes of music in each episode, it's you need to you need to get feedback just to make sure that there's not a huge amount of music that is not approved, and suddenly, you know, the amount of work is piling up in a way. So you need to know where you are standing, and he was really helpful with that. And he's a very, very great personality, and you know, a great director. So I was very happy. And of course, he's German, and you know, we could switch in between into our language, which sometimes helps.
It's a bonus, yeah.
Well, you know, I don't mind, but it's sometimes it was the first time that I'm working on a film with an international series, and I was able to talk German, so that was very funny. You know.
Wow. Was there a particular scene? I know you don't want to give anything away from the last 2 episodes, but maybe from the first 3, was there like a particular scene that was difficult for you to wrap your head around musically? And how do you, if you have those problem areas, how do you get past them?
Well, there was a very in the first episode, I think they were the most complicated scenes, because there was so much to fight with in a way, you know. And the thing is that in the beginning you don't know how the mix is, and you don't know what is in the foreground and what is in the background. So in a way you try to, you know, find your spots and your frequency in the whole spectrum of what is going on. So I mean, the language doesn't have to be covered. Certain sounds that are maybe sound effects should somehow come through, but at the same time you want to create a drive, and you know, you have all these things that the director and you are wanting in that scene. So to find you know, the space is, I think, maybe the most difficult thing, I think, in film composing anyways. I mean, it's when I have space and no other noise is there, I can do anything I want in a way, and I can find structures, and doing that in a limited amount of time. For example, let's say you have a great theme that you love, and you know, and you develop it, and then suddenly the cut is changing, and 5 seconds are cut out of your cue. Then suddenly the melody is not working anymore because 3 notes are missing, and you have to somehow get into a complete different, you know, cue maybe, or you have to reduce it, and that's sometimes a little bit challenging, and also I wouldn't say depressing, but there's something in it where you just feel like, I loved it so much. You know, I'm a person that falls in love with music that I'm doing in a way, and that's sometimes pretty you know, I'm getting over it. You know, but I think passion means like you lose a part every time, you know, you can't fulfill it in a way. So but that was the main challenge. And I think one particular scene was the taxi ride, the very first taxi ride in the first episode, where he's driving from the airport into New York, because there was so much going on, and at the same time we wanted to have like a really driving rhythm. So yeah.
Now, you are a recent Oscar nominee for the film Lion. Can you talk a bit about what that recognition meant for you?
Well, I mean, it was a surprise in a way for me. At the same time, it wasn't, because it felt like it was starting. We could feel it somehow, that there's something going on, and it's a wonderful recognition. I mean, honestly, it means like you are, you know, you get a acknowledgement for your work. And of course, in worldwide, it means like you know, you get a lift in terms of people are saying, "Hey, he can do it." You know, it's in a way a quality mark, I would say. That doesn't mean, you know, life has to go on afterwards, which I think is the challenging part of it. That you approve that this is not a one, you know, like just a wonder, you know, for one time, and then after that nothing else is coming. And you know, in a way, for me, what changed is actually that I felt like I want to continue that path, and I want to intensify it. And you know, since then, since Lion is finished. I have done, I think, 8 movies now, and it's things were getting good for me, and they are starting to be good, and I'm very blessed in that sense, and I'm very happy about it.
Well, Volker, thank you so much, and congratulations on your work on Patrick Melrose. It was a pleasure talking with you again.
Thank you, Zach. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.